Hello, everyone. It says we're live. It looks like audio is coming through. Things are changing on the screen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here. What do we call this stream? World building and brainstorming a cartoon fantasy world with Cassie here. I'm muted too, but I don't think that matters because we're going through OBS. Yes, sorry. Sometimes I have to remember how this all works. Of course, if you can't hear me, let me know, but that should be fine because it says it's coming through. Okay, so I'm going to start talking as though people can hear me, and we'll see how that goes. So, live streaming, world building and brainstorming a cartoon fantasy world. I say cartoon fantasy world because I want to set the tone of the world before we even start building it, because I have something very specific in mind, and it's going to change. It's going to be a lens that we look at everything through. So kind of in every case, we're going to go, well, what would this look like? What would this thing or object or event or whatever look like if it was in a cartoon rather than realistic? You know, say someone getting cut in half. Hello, Cassie.
Hi, guys.
Sorry, I don't know how to do that part. We're sitting in the same room, so it doesn't feel like the normal sort of introduce everybody. It's just like, well, I've been hanging out with her all day.
You said my name and I waved. I figured that would be
That works. Oh, okay.
And that's fine.
But okay, so sound is good. Thank you, Francois. I'm not going to say the rest of that name. I don't know why I always point out how bad I am at saying names. But welcome, everybody. So, cartoon fantasy world.
Yes.
So I've had this idea for a while where I want to play a D&D game, but I don't necessarily want it to be like a real life one where when somebody like loses a hand, it's this really big deal and like we need to tourniquet it and you're going to bleed out. Like, so I was trying to think of what the best way to contextualize that concept for other people was, and I landed on I want people to think of it like a cartoon. And I'm going to say adult cartoon. But that's like a...
Okay, give me an example.
Like a category on Hulu, yeah. So
Okay.
Rick and Morty is a very good example where it is it is an animated thing, right? It's a cartoon. But things happen in it that are potentially gory or like realistic. But they're not sensationalized within the piece. I think that's one of the most important things.
Okay.
Because in Rick and Morty, like, people are like dying all the time and getting all gross and bloody, and like you see viscera even still, like if somebody gets cut in half, but they don't focus on it unless it's part of the narrative. They're not as worried.
Yeah, it's just something that happens, and then they keep going on.
Yeah. Amanda says, how about using the fate system instead? We right now are world building, building sort of this world that we are going to be talking about an adventure in. I think it will be run in a game system I make, but we could run it in Fate if we wanted as well.
Is Fate also a little cartoony?
No, Fate is just a system of rules.
Oh, okay.
But specifically, we're talking about more a world that a system of rules could take place in.
Yes.
I have an idea of some stuff I want to brainstorm. But
Okay.
So all of that to say, basically, that shows like Rick and Morty or American Dad is another good example, or Solar Opposites, don't necessarily think the styles of the show or anything like that. It's more just that in those shows, when somebody gets shot, they kind of abstract it. It's not really like that dangerous. To see a character get shot in a cartoon is like, well, they're going to be fine next time. You know, I want that to be what comes across when I play in this world, when I run this
So
world.
that the players know that just like when you're a viewer watching American Dad, you're going to be back next episode. It's going to be fine.
The players and the GM all have this same expectation that, and not even necessarily that everything will reset like stuff, but I do like playing with that.
Okay.
But specifically that if your arm gets chopped off, the next scene is going to be them finding a way to get your arm put back on, because that's how cartoons work. You know,
Yeah. There's
a lot of little things, but that's the idea. Is we're setting that lens up, and we will see how it affects other things later, and I think it'll make a lot more sense. So we are going to potentially prepare something. We're going to talk through some ideas I had of sort of an adventure I want to talk about, I guess. So I'm imagining that there is this big mountainside, I'm going to call it a factory, right?
Okay.
It's like mines. Like, imagine the industrialization scenes from Lord of the Rings is a good example. And so, Amanda says, Fate's more improv-based, so the wacky, zany, crazy is more prominent. That's true.
Got it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And so that would be another way to really lean into the tone, is using a game system that supports it. So there's the sort of mountainside factory.
Yep.
And what I imagine happens here is fantasy magic research and development. So this is where they invent stuff. Now, they invent all kinds of stuff. I don't think you've seen it, Cassie, but the show Eureka, where there's like, they make stuff in this place, and some of it they're using crazy science to do stuff. They're making a refrigerator that, works really long term with cold fusion and stuff, like normal things. But they also get military contracts and work on secret stuff. Like, it's a very high magic place where people are doing a lot of research. And I want the players, basically, to have to go in there and interact with all of these things, right? It just gives us sort of a backdrop to go, okay, what the heck would they be working on there? And in the same respect, by setting it up as a cartoon world, I feel like we'll be able to get the players to do a lot more, because if they drink a fizzy lifting drink and go up and come back down, say, in, like, Willy Wonka, it's not necessarily like, I don't know, it feels different because you're a cartoon, I guess. So if you see, sitting here trying to figure out how, when you talk to each other, you can both be looking to your left.
I know. That's funny. Maybe next time, if you want to, we could do like one camera.
Oh yeah, but it's just funny because I didn't think about what it looked like. Yeah.
Hi, thanks.
People are saying hello. Sorry, I'm reading the chat, and I thought you were there. Hello, everybody. It's a magic trick. Yeah, it is. I think somebody mentioned that last time.
So, as well. Research and development.
But yeah, so I...
R&D.
So yes, exactly. And what I said to you, Cassie, and we can maybe start brainstorming this. At the end, what I wanted to happen was, they do what they're going to do. You go in, and the whole session, or maybe multiple sessions, are sneaking around this place and, like, getting some gear, maybe, and doing crazy things. But you're talking, like, pocket dimensions where you have to do some sort of, like, I don't know, maybe sports event. Like, it can be anything, and I'm really going crazy with that.
Oh, yeah.
But so they're going to go through antics and things and get to the end and potentially thwart or not thwart this villain. But then what happens is there is a river, like, flowing past this place.
Yeah.
And what I want to happen is for the river to freeze, like for them to use something magical in the place to freeze all the water.
Okay.
And then use that as their way that they escape.
Oh, so flash fire, flash cool,
Oh,
flash ice.
Yeah, so the idea is their escape. The scene I want to plan is during the escape scene. Now, what I wanted to say to you was, we watched a movie today called American Factory.
Yes.
That was called. It was a documentary called American Factory. It's really funny because reversing the camera would make sense, but it's much funnier if we both look one way. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, you got to talk.
I just look this way. I think somebody pointed that out, that if I look the wrong way, it works better. But we watched a TV show called a documentary on Netflix called American Factory, and it was very interesting because a Chinese billionaire.
Yeah, Fu Yao basically came to the U.S. after a GM plant had closed in Ohio, and he sunk some $500 million into it to get it working again, and this time producing just glass for cars. And it's really interesting to see, trying to get the two cultures to kind of mix and compare when they visited the Chinese factories versus the American. It was really cool. Really cool.
It was extremely interesting, and especially because they had a very clear way of doing things in China, and they came over here and brought a lot of Chinese employees to teach the American workers, and it created this interesting story, and this is what the documentary is about.
Yeah.
Where it was like a cool thing to be reopening a plant. That's something that's unheard of, and then documentary ensues, and we learn the good, the bad, the ups and downs of that, right? But what's important is they had this very clear idea. Okay, a few people. Oh, Pig Pug says, well, this is supposed to be in a cartoonish world, right? Are we talking like classic Looney Tunes tropes, or am I thinking too cartoony? That is a little bit too cartoony, but if somebody decides, or we land on a brainstorm somewhere where there is where a character runs through a door, and then somebody else runs into it and it was painted on the door, that would absolutely be acceptable.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Because that's magic, right? Like, that's cartoon, and in Looney Tunes, we don't have the concept of magic in the world, so it's crazy to see that. But in a magical world, we get to have the moment from Looney Tunes a little bit less zany as Looney Tunes.
We couldn't take it as far. You could have painted wall, which would be cool. Sorry to take us off track, but I wanted to make sure we addressed
that's good.
The question.
I like that. I'm really bad.
Set the tone, right?
Yes, yeah.
So we can have a painted wall and say that's magic, but you don't want it so cartoony that you have like a Bugs Bunny character, like a talking animal like that. Yeah. I figure we might as well just make sure. I want to make sure.
Yes, and that's another good example here. I think we fixed it. So that is basically the idea. Attack by +1 anvil. That's where it's like, I like the idea that you could
Yeah.
pull from cartoons like that. And okay, so this is actually a really good example of what I wanted to do by giving people that sort of, what do I want to call it? A sort of tone context where I said cartoon, and some people went one way and some people went others. And then I don't know if you guys were here, but I did mention that it was more like serious and sometimes very funny shows that are animated. Like American Dad is a good example where sometimes it's an FBI case and it's more serious.
What about like My Hero Academia? Like we could look at anime as well.
Anime is another good example because a lot of times you will see something where it's like, it's different when somebody gets beat up a lot in anime. There's not the scene there is if you're filming it where you really see that their skull was destroyed.
Yeah.
You just get the impression that they were beat up really bad, and then later they're in the hospital, but they never focus on really how bad that is. That's kind of the difference where they're like, yeah, you know it's bad.
It depends. It really depends on the anime.
Well, and that's fair. Where I mean what I'm talking about. So any animes that fit this constraint are the ones that would fit. Because any that they focus on the realistic, then that wouldn't work.
I guess like I have broad strokes in my head for this kind of
So
stuff. So
that's why I stayed away from anime because it had
anime.
I think it has too many distinctions like that where it's like
Got
this
it.
anime does it and this doesn't. Yeah.
Okay.
So more American cartoons is fair to say. Is the factory the Acme factory? See? Okay. Pig Pug? Yes. Absolutely. I personally love the idea of being able to take things like that, things in the world, and getting to put them in the fantasy world and make them real. Just like that, like Asime, the Asime factory. Asime, so maybe it's
Of course, they would be the research and development in this world to make all of your zany contraptions magic-infused contraptions.
Exactly. And the other interesting thing I want to say, or what I think is interesting, is the characters don't know they're in a cartoon world. Right? What?
I have something to say to John.
Oh, okay,
John
yeah.
Doe.
Read what he said, and then so say what he said, and then
John Doe says he has an idea for a playable race of cartoon characters that come from a wizard's magic book. Each page of the book is a different theme. Characters can be pulled into the book, and some tunes escape. And this just makes me think that maybe alongside the character cartoon creation, using like books that you come across every day, like this fun one, which is actually on our table, Secret Language of Birthdays, but I like to look at it just for fun, and the days all have a different theme, and that would be really cool to also make a character around. The Day of Societal Awareness, the Day of Human Definition, the Day of Devotion. That sounds a little more normal. Let's do that one, right? That would be a good one. But, so I think alongside that, also pulling from just fun books like this could be really cool too.
Yeah, like characters that come from books, but also using other books to give inspiration to those characters. No, I love that.
So I like that idea. That could be really fun.
And what's interesting about what John says is, in that case, the characters would likely know that they are cartoons, right? If they were playing the characters, like you said, playable race, they would know they came out of a book. Whereas these people that we're playing would play just like any role-playing game, but the lens we're viewing them through as watchers is cartoons. So I do love that idea, John. And it gives me that exact example of like, that is a good example of having an awareness around it.
I know we got off traffic.
Barker is now. I don't know that we can. No. I don't know that we can abide by this now. I'm sorry. Now he knew he'd get you. He knew you were still interested.
I am still interested.
We asked Barker what day to look up, and he declined. And I'm putting him on full blast for that.
Shit.
But Josh said, makes me think of the moment where Hulk is slamming Loki around. This is a very good example of exactly what we're talking about, where you just kind of She's gonna look it up. That's okay. That's okay. No, I know.
It doesn't say how you die.
I wanted to both say, that's a funny story too. I both wanted to give Barker a hard time for it and give him the what we were doing anyway.
This thing.
But it is just like where Loki is being slammed around, because that scene is so funny because Loki isn't being destroyed into a bunch of pieces, right? If Loki were somebody that regenerated, we actually just watched Deadpool 2.
Oh my god.
Deadpool can not die, but he explodes and regenerates. Loki doesn't explode, right? That's the difference. In the cartoon world, if you blow up near something, you get smashed into the wall really hard. in the real world, if something blows up near you, you explode into a bunch of pieces. That's some of the distinctions we're calling. So, Cassie, May 15th.
I'm just going to say at least the name of it. It's called the Day of the Dreamweavers. Isn't that fitting?
It is.
I think that's very fitting.
Let's hit some highlights. Instead of focusing on this, there's like some strengths. Yeah.
I'm going to start with weaknesses. Frustrated, isolated, and passive. Strengths, imaginative, and naturally magnetic. Man, he's attracting spoons. Is he,
They didn't say literally magnetic. They said naturally magnetic. Different thing.
You definitely live.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I love stuff like this.
Yes, as a pig pug, the party goes through a winding tunnel and wind up in Toontown from Roger Rabbit. See, and that's
yes.
Exactly. I love that idea. I love that's where like I am being very specific about what I want because I'm learning that there is a lot of distinction in what I'm expecting, and it's helping me realize what I need to tell people. Yeah, go ahead.
Just Christopher May's response here. I'm about to run a one-shot where real-life cops on administrative leave wind up transported into an anime world. I think that's going to be great.
Here's the thing. It sounds like if you put that on a list of other animes, which would include a person that when one type of water is thrown on them changes gender to the other.
Yeah.
If you put it on a list of one of them is somebody as a prince of tennis, right? I'm like, that fits right among some of the zaniest anime concepts I've ever heard. So
don't forget,
I don't know
there's
if you're
like
going zany, but
there's Food Wars. There's Cells where it's the body and it's anime of cells in the body as people. That was really cool.
Exactly. So yeah.
I did want to take us back to the whole American Factory thing because I know you had something to say about it.
Well, and so what I wanted to tell you was part of again. So what we're sort of doing here is just getting off track and talking a lot. But what the goal was, that's okay.
I mean, that's
really the
part
goal.
of it.
No. But I hated to say that that's what we're doing here because it's not what we're doing. But it's derogatory to say that that's what we should be doing. What I should say instead is what I'm going for is setting up a bunch of lenses to look at this world through. And it's going to seem like we're going in circles a lot. And then suddenly, I think a lot of things will click in place. And we'll see how true that is. That's okay. Yeah, somebody asked, Josh asked, he mentioned...
That's his day.
Oh,
May
the 23rd. Yeah, the day of energetic transmission. Listen, this book does a very interesting thing that is a conversation for another time.
Okay.
Where it applies to very many people. And it is a masterclass in making some things very vague and some things very specific, and sometimes it just doesn't work at all, and sometimes it works extremely well.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work at all, but it's such a fun thing to play with.
Exactly. This world should also have talking food. So here's another sort of distinction.
If your food talks, can you still eat it?
Well, that's a good question. Here's the thing. We would in this world we would have to find a reason the food would talk, a reason they would use magic to make food talk that would benefit somebody.
It's spies. The food is spies.
Oh, okay. So
Instead
the food can hear and talk.
Yeah.
Right. So because if I'm understanding you correctly, which I'm just making up, what I got from that was you sell somebody a piece of fruit or something. And then they leave it in their house, and then basically it's a bug. But then you eventually have to go back and get it, and then it will tell you all their secrets. Is that?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that would be one reason food would talk. But that's sort of the distinction in the world. Well, go ahead.
I was picturing actually like a little banquet kind of thing, or you're at like a gathering where there's, the big table. I can't think of the right word.
A gathering, a ball. What do you mean, like
whatever?
A dinner. I don't know what that we've used. I suppose you have a specific one in mind.
Is there a name for the table where everything's all laid out for the food?
Buffet.
Buffet. Thank you. So
there we go. Buffet.
Buffet table. And sometimes you get, little mini cakes or what have you, and then some of those are actually little bugs strategically placed, so they're not the ones people pick up. They're just like on the side.
So I love that because that's the type of thing. In my opinion, I'm personally not great at. We'll get to the chat in a second. Not great at taking concepts and keeping them in. Gala or gala. Barker said maybe that's what you were looking for. That's a really
buffet.
good one.
I was thinking a buffet
buffet
table
or
is what I
potluck.
pictured, and I
Barker said potluck. That's another good one. Yeah. Oh, okay. Buffet is what you were going for. Sorry.
Yes, I couldn't find
the gala
the word.
is good because I was imagining it very fancy as well. I was imagining the ball from Firefly
So
because they had a buffet. Yeah.
I read gala as gals because I was just sitting far away from my screen.
Gals is my favorite word for a party, says Barker. That's not actually what he said at all. A Baptist Sunday. Yeah. I'm assuming that they get together and eat together. I've done that before. Or perhaps the materials coming into the factory are sentient, like trees, etc., but come out inanimate. What does the factory create? So I did say factory.
The factory creates genocide.
Well,
Jesus Christ.
right? Holy
I'm
cow.
sorry, that was a lot.
Well, it did
Killing
seem.
the trees.
I see. I just feel like there wasn't enough contextual contact where it sounded like you were talking about a war machine. It sounded like you were talking directly to Barker. Yeah, we'll get to the chat in a second. Famous last words. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of it was some milk lies. Okay, Michael said food tells the consumer its nutritional content. Some milk lies.
Oh yeah.
Oh, some milk lies. I see. Because if the milk could talk, it would tell lies. It took me a little while to decode that sentence. But again, totally right track. That's what's interesting is the factory would make things like this. It would make what's the word? Consumed products, like consumable, like luxury items in a sense. It wouldn't make like steel, right? It would make toasters. But in this world, what is a toaster? It's not electric and you plug it in. And that's where you get this crazy device because they're like GE creating creature comforts for these people, but they look fantasy. The other thing is, and I touched on this tiny bit of foreshadowing earlier, that's what their company does, but like, say, a Lockheed Martin, they get government contracts or whatever is a power big enough to pay them a lot of money to research specific things like weapons and better armor and stuff like that. And of course, so the players will have some time where they're on the part of it that's like consumer goods, and then the players will also have a part of it that's later that is more where there's like the experimental weapons and more experimental technologies like that, teleportation or something.
Yeah.
But that's what's important is these creature comforts are those very silly, zany things where it's like, no, what are they marketing to people these days? Put a fantasy spin on it. That's what these people make.
Yeah. Somebody, hold on.
Yeah, Christopher said that, Who?
Somebody, oh gosh. Who said it? Oh yeah, Michael M. tells people about nutritional content. So what if food did that, but then like the factory's like, but we don't want them doing that. Like if it's for Twinkies, they're trying to sell you Twinkies or what have you.
Yeah.
And they tell you the nutritional stuff.
Well, okay, so in that case, it sounds like you're saying something is catching on that somebody doesn't want to catch on, right?
Correct.
This food that can talk.
Like,
and I do like those types of... That is a good example of a conflict that would happen.
Yeah.
Because...
In this zany, wacky world where food can maybe talk.
Exactly, food can talk. We did focus on the talking food a lot. That was a very good idea. But
yes.
Simply by how much we've talked about it, it seems like a larger part of the world than maybe it'll be. That's okay. Again,
People
I just want to point out. I just want to keep everybody...
They're inanimate objects to talk.
Okay? Yeah, right. But okay, so I pitched Cassie an idea that I think is a stage 1 idea. I don't think we're there yet. But I wanted the players to find something, a device, a thing that's being created that, when thrown into the river, stops the river.
Okay.
Right? Freezes it. And what this does is it shuts down. This is how they're disabling the factory. It's probably a water wheel. And they want to disable the whole factory, and they find through their mission that that's one way to do it. Is to stop the water wheel by freezing the ice using something they've discovered there. The factory has to brainwash their talking food. Okay.
That's a good one.
So the talking food might lie, right? But oh man, like I said, we're suddenly brainstorming a talking food. Yeah, and I think it's healthy. I love that, Barker.
And then you still have to have nutritional labels printed on it anyways, because they'll tell you lies.
Oh, or perhaps the party is being helped by sentient creations of the factory that are seeking to help shut it down.
I like that.
I like that. I like a faction within that. So
just
that's
like a
where
union.
we were. That's where we were going with, the reason I brought up American Factory is because I wanted to bring in some of those concepts where, as an American, I saw the clash of the Chinese culture, which one of the things they said was some people feel that the reason you live is to work, right? they work 12-hour days and they don't have the way they say like the amount of time Americans have off.
Yeah.
They point out how many days off they have a week.
They're like,
based on a month.
Yes, you get 8 a month. We get
8 days off a month. Yeah, and they're like, wow. And it's cultural, right? We're not necessarily here to. Well, go ahead.
And overtime was required and stuff like that. It was just.
It was interesting,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. We're not necessarily talking about that, but I wanted to bring up some of those concepts because what it showed me is a workforce that is dedicated and okay with it. Like, it's part of the culture. Oh, I love that. Rogue food freedom fighters. Pixar is watching and taking notes. This world is becoming something very different, and I'm not sad about it. Now, suddenly, it's going to be a lot more food focused than it was before. What does fried chicken have to say? I don't know. We're going to find out.
Man.
But what the other important thing about this factory is I like the idea that they're very dedicated workers, and it's a very high output, high efficiency type of place, and that's the culture. Now, here's the other thing. In this world, the goblins are the ones that work here. Now, forget everything you think you know about goblins, right? Imagine halflings of various colors that have a slightly different face.
Okay.
Like it's otherwise a sentient creature in this world, playable race, like drop the baggage you might have about goblins. They're more like World of Warcraft goblins than they are
you want to treat this as another sentient being that's
Yeah.
not necessarily vilified because it's a goblin.
Exactly. Some of the common tropes, specifically setting those aside.
Okay.
Just because goblins are cool and I want to have them in this world. But
Yeah.
they work there. But what that means is you have now decided something about goblin culture in the world that they're very dedicated. So
Okay.
that was the reason I brought up American Factory, because we were talked about the stream today and decided... we then watched that documentary, and then I was deciding to put them all together. But I like the idea of a faction within. That's where we were going. A faction within that sees the cracks and knows about some of the worst things that the company is doing, and ends up the players can sort of side with them and help them. Whether that means evacuating some of them, or like they give the players ideas of, hey, this is how you're able to shut down the factory.
Maybe one of the factions is for treating the food nicely and not brainwashing it. And then there's others that are like, no, we can't have sentient food. It's going to freak people out too much. We need to...
Yes, exactly. And
we're going to brainwash them.
It's interesting because in this world...
Oompa Loompas. Loompas.
Yes, they're Oompa Loompas in a sense. But that's what's cool is, in my opinion, bringing a less hand-wavy and more cultural outlook to it. To try to, again, more realistic, but we're still in a cartoon.
Yeah.
It's very... I think that dichotomy... I need to find better ways to explain those or set up those distinctions, but if I can get that context to other people, I think we can play in a cool game.
Oh, absolutely.
We're really going to read some of the chat here, because a lot of people said so.
Yeah.
So if Willy Wonka is your DM, you get his world, Josh says. On the far end of the silly side, the inventions could be the craziest, most outrageous, i.e. the toaster is a blowtorch with a holder at the end for a single slice of bread. Yes, man. Michael, that is a very good example. Part of what I want this to be, and that's why we haven't talked about game system or anything yet, because I have an idea where I'd like to set it up that you go through this world and like there's a part of the game near the beginning of this where you're setting the scene.
Yeah.
And you go into various rooms and you brainstorm what might be in there, right? So we would do this exact thing. I'd say, okay, well, they're making toasters in this room. What's a fantasy toaster, guys? Let's figure out what that looks like. In my opinion, one of the best pitches might be a huge blowtorch that you put a holder at the end of. That's how you toast bread. Like, you want toast, don't you?
Okay, so take even modern things, but we're just going to give them a twist.
In this part of the game, yes, they're going through sort of this R&D department where they're getting a bunch of these, like, different hits, like a Willy Wonka, where they go to this thing, and then this totally different room that totally looks different, totally different story, and then this room, like, absolutely, like, one cool invention room to the next, basically.
Okay.
So sometimes it would be something innocuous like that, but sometimes it might be, like I said, a portal to another dimension where people are constantly playing a game. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, that's just saying random words and we can figure out what it means.
I was, like, just thinking of another example. So we have the toaster, right? I was thinking about the microphone that we're using, the blue microphone, and, like, what if a microphone in this world is literally, like, a cotton ball stuck on the top of an ice cream cone or something, and that's a microphone.
Well, and so...
I don't know how...
Right? And I will say, that's what's interesting, is it is difficult for me to sort of wrap my head around what things to tweak and what things not. And that's why I wanted to have this stream, because I like the ideas like that come from this, but I'm so bad at it.
And the toaster one's better. Like, I feel so that's more plausible than like my microphone ice cream cone thing.
Because that doesn't have a good why to it. In this case, they're making it, right? So if you consider what a microphone would be, people brought up Flintstones, a few Flintstones things. Josh said a Brontosaurus in the shower. Think more like that, where it needs to still have the function, but they don't think it's weird that they're using it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I could see like having a funny megaphone or something. I don't know, but like that's where some of those distinctions come from. Michael said maybe a part of the game is allowing the players to come up with the inventions coming out of the factory. Yes, absolutely.
It should.
Yeah, like that exact concept. And then what I want is for some of those to be things they get to keep, like if they're helpful. Some of them are going to be toasters, right? And they might use it as a flamethrower, say. We'll do an easy one. But then later you get like what is essentially a anti-personnel bomb that creates a mini black hole. Yeah, they're going to keep a couple of those, right? You know what I mean? You basically give them equipment to use later against people. Yeah.
I might need to chase that cat.
Yeah, that's fine. You go do whatever if you need to.
Okay.
There's a cat. You can tell everybody unless...
there's a cat in our yard that's pestering some stuff. Maybe. Hopefully he'll leave my box.
Oh, yeah, he'll leave it.
I hope so. Okay.
So Christopher says, but your point in my game from an anime feel, there's a recipe and a search for the flavor that unlocks a neural memory pattern that unlocks that mortality. That is so anime. I don't know if you needed somebody to tell you that, but that is like such... I would sit down and be like, yeah, let's watch 12 episodes of this, you know? Like, that's so cool. Oompa Loompas. Joda says, hey, what did I lose? I don't know. I can't help you there. But
marbles.
We are world building a cartoon world. We spent a lot of time talking about what I think cartoons are. Immortality. I spelled it right?
Yeah. We got the idea.
We got it. Yeah, I don't know. But so you didn't lose much, but we're brainstorming. A starship lands on the top of a many-tiered cake with mystic candles around it, and a gigantic monster sleeps inside it. Give it the flavor to unlock its memory. And immortalize is bequeathed to, and immortality is bequeathed to the queen. So yes, they did it a second time. I see. I love that's what I mean. Like that sort of thing. If you think about it, a starship lands on top of a many-tiered cake.
That's some
with
Rick and
mystic
Morty.
candles around it. It's very one of my favorite things in the world is Alice in Wonderland and the many things that come out of the world because it is such a constant sort of subversion of expectations in a way that is so naturally done. I don't know. I'm jealous of someone's ability to do that. Douglas Adams does a very similar thing, I think.
I think for those two authors, they take... Yeah, it's because they take the mundane things and they just change the... Well, in terms of Alice in Wonderland, change the perspective big time, for sure.
And that's what it is.
It's
exactly. Like, yes, literal changing of perspective in some cases even. But that's what's so interesting is sometimes it's difficult to come up with those things that are so outside of your perspective, right? You have to be so outside of the box to come up with a story like that, to write things to look at things the way Douglas Adams does. Because just whatever you think of his writing, he just writes in a very specific way, and I'm sure it's just part of how his mind works. So, but that is a good example of an idea that I would have a hard time coming up with because I wouldn't imagine a starship landing on a cake. But given that idea, I could make it really crazy. I know what it would look like once I have that, but that seed is the thing that I'm often missing.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm...
No, that's okay. So...
Thinking.
That's here. I guess everybody's going to help me as much as they have been.
Yes.
We're freezing the river.
Right.
And now we're using it also as our escape route. River's frozen. I told Cassie, and I don't like this idea, and it's bad, but you got to start somewhere. I told Cassie that there is something, some sort of metal thing that's shaped similar to a surfboard, so say like a shield or something.
Yeah.
That they're able to heat up and then like ride it down like a skateboard, like Legolas in Lord of the Rings, down the now frozen and stopped and potentially disabled factory as their getaway.
Got it. So I see, because...
let me say this. I want a better way. I want them to get to go down the river, but I want to think of a cool way that they can do so with something they find in the place.
So I think originally the concept was that this shield thing heats up the ice as they're going, correct?
Yes, like part of the idea was if the thing is hot, if they're on a hot shield, it's carving into the ice better.
What if you had to send something down ahead of you that actually allowed the ice to freeze? Sorry. to melt a little, and then of course it freezes over because the rest of it is still frozen because of whatever thing you put into place. But then you basically luge down on this thing, on the actual plate.
So something to like...
To make a path.
To flatten it out or something to make it,
Because having gone sledding before, like, if it's icy, you just slide. You don't need to melt it to go anywhere.
Oh, yeah, and that's more what my concern was, is if it was, like, frozen or flash frozen, it would... create all these peaks and stuff and not be smooth. And so that was what that's why that was the problem I was trying to solve. You were solving for that in a different way, and I like that.
Options.
Ice skates with a rocket engine strapped on. See, I like that.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
That's the thing. Not everybody's good at skating. I guess they wouldn't be good at surfing. I don't know. We're circling it.
I'm definitely bad at skating.
Frozen river, perfect. My boat has skates, says Josh. Oil slick in the factory. The factory could also be flooded after frozen. Okay. So here's the thing. In my mind...
Okay.
I made up that there was a water wheel in a river, right? I want the water to freeze.
Zamboni shield.
Zamboni. I want the water to freeze, and I want them to go down it, but my constraint is not on where the water came from. I really like the idea that instead of what I said, they break a dam and then freeze that water. Like, it's more of a two-tier thing, right? So now they have multiple things they have to do, because Barker's saying, he said the factory could also be flooded. Imagine it's in a valley, and they get power from the dam, and we destroy the dam, and then freeze the water. Because then you change the landscape, you potentially flood some parts of it, you decommission the factory, which is probably what the end of the story is going to want to be, and you get the cool scene where everybody gets to toboggan away, basically.
Toboggan away.
So, I don't know. Still, you know what I mean? I'm that's what we're here for, is that is now one more thing that I can do, and then depending on what other decisions we make, how they destroy it and stuff will, potentially.
So I'm picturing at the moment, we have kind of a mountain or hill, we have a dam here, and then it's like kind of a nice valley kind of going down. Yeah,
and remember, this is set inside of a mountain. So if there's a dam, like,
I figured
dug into the mountain is where this place is.
Okay, that's what I thought, with some of it sticking out, but not too much.
Yes, yeah, it's mostly inside.
Okay, got it. So I was thinking that maybe there is a small waterfall or something for a water wheel. Maybe a little one, but definitely not enough for an emergency evacuation. Maybe the factory catches fire or something, and that's why they want to break the dam, because that will flood the interior furnaces.
Oh, exactly.
But it will also allow the toboggan escape route, maybe.
So you're saying...
There's...
the dam, and we break the dam.
You do still purposefully break the dam.
Oh, but you set it on fire. Right?
No. I'm like, the factory, something went wrong in the factory.
Well,
it's
remember,
on fire.
the players are potentially destroying the factory.
Oh, okay.
Right, so we may not want to put a fire out because they're there to make sure nobody can come back here again. That's why they would flood it, because then I'm like, that probably destroys so much of the stuff.
Because they had to flood and then freeze it.
Well, exactly. The freezing, and I don't know why I'm so caught up on the freezing. That was the thing I wanted, but it doesn't have to be that. People might also choose to swim under the ice. I like that, because you would have the choice, right? You would lay out, like, hey, you could do this, or you could do these other things.
So this item does not freeze everything. It has selective freezing?
Well, I thought it would freeze everything.
Because that's what I did, too.
Yes, because I got that idea, just to give... the reason I'm so caught up on this, I don't know if you've ever read this, but I like the idea of that. I was reminded recently of a Kurt Vonnegut book, when there's this thing they create called Ice 9. And the point was, if I'm remembering this correctly, the military was having trouble going through water. So, like, swampy areas where they had, like, a lot of water, and so they decided if they could invent something that could, when thrown in the water, could make it freeze, they could roll tanks over it, and life would just be much easier.
Yeah.
They do invent something like that, but what happens is, when it freezes the water, it duplicates. Every bit of that frozen water then in any other non-frozen water will immediately freeze it, right? So it was this thing called Ice 9, where it was basically like a virus in the water, where any water it touched froze it, and then it got more and more and more, and it was like a zombie virus that turned all the water in the world to ice.
Cool. That's actually...
I like the idea that the players might find something, and this goes back to the ACMA factory. They would find something with a play on the name Ice 9, whether it was as lazy as Ice 7,
Ice
or
10.
If you went up to... If there was a bottle labeled, this is very Alice in Wonderland-y, and follow me here, Ice 9, right? If you just changed the way you pronounce some of those letters, you would have a bottle of Icky Ninny. And that's the kind of game I want. Like, you found this magical thing they're working on, codenamed Icky Ninny, and you're like, what the heck? And I'm like, yeah, it freezes everything.
It would be Ice 7 because 7, 8, 9.
Scuba suits in the factory for occasional underwater repairs. So Barker,
Right.
I would even go another step, and they've invented scuba suits. Like, maybe these would be the first unconnected or disconnected. Like, they wouldn't need airlines. They'd be the first ones with, and we'd have to brainstorm that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so have you ever seen the movie Men of Honor with Cuba Gooding Jr.? Really cool movie, but it's about diving. They have these huge diving suits, and they have, there is a long, arduous process you have to do to become one of these Navy divers that does these repairs underwater, and there's these huge diving suits, and the main thing is it's like a lot of canvas and metal, and then you have to wear this huge helmet that sits on you, but you're underwater, right? So it's not that heavy. The thing is, that was the best they had at the time. In this world, they would be inventing those types of suits where they're very big and unwieldy, but you can now go underwater when you could not at all before. You know, like, that's a big deal in this world.
Okay.
So the players would, I think, climb in, and they would be very slow and lumbering. I'm imagining very much like the Big Daddies from BioShock. But that's what they're putting on, those kind of crazy suits, and it's got a drill attachment. Like, yeah, you just climb in that.
Wow.
Oh yeah, Barker said like old school Men of Honor, yeah, big old jinx. It's just the melding of those so many different things, and then it's also a cartoon.
I'm still in like cartoon mode, so I'm picturing. It actually makes me think of like Miyazaki a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
No, your way to get underwater is you actually have your magical fancy umbrella, and when you open it, it makes a little air pocket, and then you go underwater. Kind of like how if you flipped a canoe, it would trap air as well.
Yeah.
So that concept, and then we magnify it because magic and cartoon.
What's really interesting is
That'd be
I
kinda
like.
funny.
Okay, so because I like the Navy diver uniforms, right? I don't want
absolutely.
to lose that. So let's say yes anyway.
Yes, and.
I got to team up with your talking Twinkie friends to sabotage the scuba suit factory. Yeah, that's what this adventure is becoming.
And then toboggan away.
There is in Rick and Morty, there is an episode where they do interdimensional cable, and there's they do TV shows where everybody is food. And so all I'm imagining when everybody says talking food is this very serious, like, scene taking place between people that are corn, and they're shooting each other, and they make corn puns because that's their world. And so I just love it every time somebody says. Oh, but so we were saying yes. Do you want to let's look at the chat?
Yeah, let's catch up with the chat.
If that's the case, something in the factory. Oh man, I missed a lot, guys. I'm bad at this.
We never decided if I should watch the
Josh. Oh, that's okay. No,
thing
I'm usually better about watching it. That's a lie. I just told. Zamboni Shield is where we went. Barker read Calvin Hobbes, which I also love. Revenge of the Babysat, says Pig Pug. I had other books, but I can't remember any right now. Michael says, can't get the thought out of my mind that every movie I've seen with a factory and a river circles around the idea that the river is polluted by the output of the factory. Very true.
It really is just a common thing. Because factories and like IRL stuff that they do is like producing nitrogen or producing phosphorus. We've been on a gardening kick, and all. I don't know, man. We're not good at recycling our waste sometimes. And
exactly, like it's a common thing because it's.
Yeah, and regulations.
It's usually at the heart of it is like greed and people not caring about the pollution.
But it's also just a lack of knowledge. Like we do stuff, we might solve a problem being able to make these things in a factory, which is awesome, but then there's consequences, and we just don't know about them till later, unfortunately.
Cassie reads a lot of ecological stuff, so I do agree with you, but
that's why I don't want to go into it
as
any
a
further.
narrative concept. No, that's okay. Nothing you said was wrong or bad or anything. We would usually follow that more, but
not today.
That's all.
Another time.
Because in this case, the river is not polluted with magic. I think that would be cool. But Barker says, as Tim and Matt so often say, prepare problems and not solutions. Pig Pug, if that's the case, something in the factory has to act as a respirator. They mentioned scuba suits in the factory for occasional underwater repairs, maybe. Yeah.
I did want to mention, talking about like the scuba suits around there, you guys made me think of the fact that, oh dang, actually flooding the factory would be terrible unless everyone was prepared for it, because if you flooded it, and then it flash froze, you're going to have people stuck in the ice.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be there's no escaping unless you are already at the escape hatch, like ready to go.
Yeah, I like the idea that one of the ways is easier and you can blow up the factory, and the other way is to flood it and freeze it, and that preserves everything better and, allows something to be gotten from it. And you have to make choices based on which one you're going to do. I like that type of game.
Oh.
Where it might be the harder decision.
Well, maybe I need to bring us back to the fact that it's a cartoon and maybe let go of that realism a little bit. Be like, they're frozen, but this is a cartoon world. Those people are going to be fine.
Oh, yeah, the people would be fine. Yeah, they would just go get them out of the ice and arrest them.
I was just thinking a little too
But that's why we need to use that lens, because sometimes...
Yeah.
Vonnegut FTW. If Vonnegut's getting involved, the boss fight has to be the handicapper general. Turd Rocket says, perhaps magic version of that weird cold fusion device featured in the volcano at the start of Star Trek Into Darkness.
I forgot about that.
I remember he's in a volcano and they get him out, and I don't remember. I don't remember.
It was an opening scene, and it was bananas.
The volcano was going to erupt and kill the burgeoning
indigenous
culture.
People, yeah.
And they stopped it. Okay, yes, I do remember that, and it is exactly like that. But we missed all that. Okay, no scuba gear. Man, okay. Oh, badass imagery, diving suits reminiscent of Bioshock. And Barker says, I wonder if the factory's exhaust output has the inverse effect, purified to water.
Right?
Yeah, in cartoons, being frozen in ice doesn't kill you. It preserves you from all time.
Exactly.
The other thing I'm leaning on is World of Warcraft is another one. Like, where people get frozen in that and they just, like, wiggle around. Like, that you know what I mean? Like, you wiggle around when you're frozen, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is actually very, yeah. Because I was going to say there's a scene in Rick and Morty where somebody does get frozen, but it's different. No reason to muddy up the works. But I was saying I was saying yes to you, and I wanted to start on something. Hey, Ben.
What's up, Ben?
How's it going? We're world building some stuff. So this is
some
fun.
Crazy
So
cartoons.
we're worrying less about where we started, and we're going to go where we are. You mentioned a magical umbrella that somebody walks around with, and it sort of allows them to walk around, I would say, anywhere, right? I'm imagining what I am calling in my worlds a singular spirit, something like a Krampus, where there's not a race of them or a species of them. They don't live somewhere and breed and create stuff. They exist for a singular purpose. What that purpose is, it depends, but they are not human, right?
Okay.
So think hard Miyazaki here.
Okay.
This is somebody whose perspective is inhuman, and we don't know yet. But they are the owner of this umbrella, right?
Okay.
They can go anywhere. They can go in dense fog or toxic fumes, or they are probably an immortal being in some way. Probably a classic, if you kill them, they reconstitute somewhere else, whatever.
Okay.
But imagine like a Santa Claus style thing. This is what's called the singular spirit. What, yeah.
Oh, Barker said, I'm imagining the water being too pure where no life can survive.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, that would be very interesting.
I think that would be extremely interesting. And he said, cryptids, I definitely love it. So, imagine this person. So, I am now imagining somebody that has an umbrella. That's very Miyazaki. I'm imagining a tall, humanoid figure wearing formal clothing.
Okay.
But without a tie. So, like, not so dressed up that they're a tux, but, like, so dressed up that they look like they do it every day.
Can I have a furry collar?
Let's say furry collar.
Plush,
absolutely. But, like, they enjoy looking good, and they know they do, right? This person is aware that they exude confidence.
It knows that it's another being, but it's not too worried about blending in. Just enough. It likes the parts of the culture, and it will take what it likes.
Exactly, but it has really no great concern for other people in most cases. Definitely cryptids, yeah. So, or maybe Michael says, or maybe the town below the factory is going magically crazy because of the magic in the contaminated water. It's funny, I don't know why the players are going there yet.
What if the magic is supposed to be in the water and it's not?
And that's going back to the purity.
You're getting your vitamin deficiency. There's no magic, but you're talking foods. You got all these crazy things like.
So imagine a world. Hellmage says, I swear if these lectures don't kill me, missing these streams will. How's it going, everybody? Umbrellas bring Mary Poppins to mind, which is never a bad thing, says Turd Rocket. I agree, because I'm imagining that very same whimsical feel and the same kind of magic that Mary Poppins operates with, which is like never explained. Just like anything can kind of happen, and there's always an answer for something.
It's just accepted, and I actually forgot, like, that is very much a cartoon in of itself. They hopped into chalk drawings, right?
That, I don't remember the movie very well, but I think so.
There's some chalk drawings at some point.
But exactly, that's what I mean. I'm like, but her magic is very much that way. I'm sorry, I don't remember the movie enough, but they probably did.
It's been a long time.
They danced with penguins, I remember that.
Yes.
That's that movie. And Michael says, nice, so the factory is draining magic from the water, potentially. But
because
all that,
they have to put it into the food and equipment that they make,
I do like the idea. I do like the idea that there was a town that was doing well, maybe they were prospering. Something's happening because of magic that they didn't realize was in the water. Think direct parallel, coal in the U.S. What?
They thought that this factory was going to be a good thing because they could produce more food.
Yeah, so
let's
that's where we're getting.
Oh, okay.
Then a factory wants to come to the town.
Yep.
And the people have to decide whether or not to let them, and they're promised all of these great things, but they do not realize that what the factory really needs is that river.
Yes.
So yes, then they think it's going to be good, and there's this rallying cry, and the mayor, exactly what you're saying, but specifically they're misled.
And they're like, it's another take on the Silent Spring. My tomatoes aren't singing in the morning anymore. What's going on?
Exactly. Suddenly things start changing, but the people that started the factory know where the magic is coming from. So I really like that idea. I like that taking it out, and it so subverts that trope we were just talking about.
So the goblins, though, aren't the bad guys. This is just the race who happens to be here.
Yeah, they're
Correct.
workers.
Yeah, I want to make sure that, no, some of the goblins also lived there prior to the factory, probably.
Yeah, because now I'm imagining a town, and we don't know, but yes, other people would live there and stuff.
Okay.
What? Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. What? Yeah.
I didn't want the goblins to be made to be the antagonists entirely.
No.
That's all. But I forget the factory is the other entity.
Because I do like the realism element of making it. Trying to avoid situations where things are so homogenous, like, well, no, all the goblins work in this place and they do this, just trying to avoid those things where I can. What, the Brandon Sanderson?
Oh yeah, I've been reading some Brandon Sanderson. It's been a while, but you're right. It's not
the magic isn't very well explained,
but that's okay.
No, and that's where it's like Miyazaki.
Yeah.
And okay.
Umbrella being
Umbrella person, yeah, there. And we've said a lot of things about them, right? We haven't really described them exactly, and that's important. Part of what I want to be of the context is not working to make sure we're all seeing the same thing, but to work to make sure that the things that we need to see exactly the same we do, and the rest we get to make up. So when you say fluffy collar, everybody's imagining something different, but that fluffy collar will never be narratively important enough that you need to know whether it's brown or black.
Fair enough.
But if I imagine it brown or you imagine black, we're leaning into the abstraction of the imagery, right?
Yes.
What I want, the scene I imagined all those years ago when this came up, is the players slowly walking underwater, right? They've escaped, the stuff's over. Yeah. And they're walking by and you're describing some of the sea life, maybe there's coral, and they're like, nobody's been down here. People prior to these types of things would not have been able to go and walk on the bottom of even this very deep river.
Yeah.
And who do they see there?
Oh.
They see a singular spirit walking around like they're not underwater. Like a singing in the rain style. They're potentially not singing, but maybe they are. And they're walking and they have their umbrella, and you describe how anywhere the umbrella falls, if it were the umbrella's shadow, you'd see there's simply no water.
It's like there's just a waterfall continuously flowing down.
They can reach out and touch the water and, maybe grab a fish, and you can describe all of these different things they can do. But that's where you meet them. And here's the thing. This is not a malicious spirit necessarily. They say, what are you doing here? Now you've met them and they're like, no, and then you get to introduce this character. I love singular spirit. So that was what I imagined is saying yes, because I want the diving suits, but I want the umbrella too. I'm going to use the umbrella somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a long time for the umbrella. But Turd Rocket says, I'll never tire of saying that, thank you. It could even be that goblins were second-class citizens in the town, and the factory is owned by well-to-do goblins with hidden bad intentions. I do like there being any sort of faction or class conflict like that, rather than the goblins versus the humans. It's like, no, other goblins.
Would it change the dynamic if these well-to-do goblins didn't know the downsides of this?
So, maybe. Here's what's interesting. We will eventually figure that out.
Okay.
We can talk about that now if you want, right? I only want to say that my style is, you're right, but that hasn't come up yet, so I wasn't going to focus on it, But we, what I mean? I think it would make a difference, to answer your question.
Yeah, that just might be getting into,
But, what I want to point out is see how we started with goblins and we've gotten where we are, it's okay sometimes to just throw the things out there and we'll eventually come back to them, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we will eventually have to figure out what those details are, but by setting up other lenses and other details as we have been, what the world is like, who these people are, maybe the singular spirit is going to be involved, those things will only be more part of the story if we wait until it's sort of their turn to be put in, you know?
That's it. Gotta let it blossom.
Take
your time.
The factory takes on an AI flavor and subverts what it was originally built to do. The goblin workers end up being allies since they know the ins and outs of the factory that has now gone bad. We did earlier talk about somebody brought up the idea of a faction within the company, you know, helping people, helping the players. Sorry, go ahead.
Because this magical water is running through the factory, does it gain sentience and does it realize, oh, this is bad. This is hurting other things. Is the factory going to be affected by the water because it's a cartoon? Food talks.
Well, no. Here's the thing. You're onto something here, but what do you mean? You're saying that the water might have an idea of its situation? I love that. Like, that's so the idea that I don't usually get.
Not the water, but the factory. The factory itself.
When people are saying, like, it's AI and stuff. Is that what you mean? I didn't know where that came from. More
takes
context.
On the AI flavor and... Yeah,
that's what you were going with. Yes, that's what I thought. Okay, that's why I was misunderstanding what you meant. The factory would be sentient potentially.
So
okay, yeah.
Michael says that the factory has now gone bad. So what if the factory became sentient and was like, I do want to keep all this magic for myself, or freeze everybody, or maybe it's like, oh, I don't like being alive.
I was gonna say I do like the idea.
Sentience.
I do like the idea of deciding that the factory has some say, but I personally would not decide which one it is because I like that being the conflict. I do love that idea that the players might interact with. It reminds me of Mr. House if you played Fallout New Vegas. That's now suddenly what I'm imagining, where it's like this company never loses. That suddenly gives me so much context. So we're gonna put a pin in that because a lot of people have a lot of good things in my nose itches. Turd Rocket. So the factory legitimized the goblin locals through ultimately the owners are Mr. Burns style.
I see that. And then Josh, the goblin go-karts. I remember that. Didn't we play that at AtCon?
I don't know. You may have. It is something that we released. Yes. No, I'm sure. I think something like that. But yes, what's funny is...
That's awesome, though.
The part of the idea of the goblins, let me say this instead. I was lying in bed the other day thinking about this exact adventure, and I was imagining that they would get in through mines, and they would have to deal with some goblins, and I would just use stuff from Goblin Go-Karts. Because in the same way, I love those references that way. I would never say Goblin Go-Karts, but there would be something with Fast Kill written on it. You know, I would use all that.
Gotta put in those little Easter eggs.
But I'm so glad you ran it, and that it was great. Barker says, I think it's a great question about the goblins' knowledge of the situation that allows them to potentially sway an ally with them. That allows people to potentially sway an ally with them. And I love the potentiality of the factory and or water knowing.
And I like that because, like, we have, I don't know, let's make the bad guy not necessarily the head honcho, whatever.
Well, no, that's okay. Let's say this. Let's say some things that that we want to be.
Okay.
The factory is sentient for some reason, right? We're talking now. It has an opinion. It
has an opinion. It formed an opinion.
Here's what's interesting. Maybe that's why the players
Lizzie.
are there. Hi, Lizzie.
What's up?
Oh,
That's okay. I was reading it, and I wanted to make sure.
No, good. Yeah, say hi to anybody. Address the chat. Interrupt me. That's okay. Oh, hey, my niece Lizzie is watching, guys. Hi, Lizzie. I totally understand. Man, this took a lot of planning to do that, not live. I know that's so funny because now I'm just poisoning the water.
So we want a sentient.
Oh, so the factory is sentient, right?
Factory.
So we have a lot of things to pull from. There's an episode of Eureka where the house goes crazy. Man, suddenly drawing blanks on other AI ones.
That's a Disney movie as well. Smart House, remember?
Oh, Smart House, same kind of thing? Yeah, right. I'm like, oh man, Eureka, Smart House. But what I like is that the players... What I want is for the players to be able to make decisions about what happens. And I don't think you need a lot of work to do this, but you need to set up, if there's a sentient factory, it has an opinion, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it didn't mind before. Maybe it did learn about something. Like the siphoning the magic out of the water, you know. Something happened, but I want it to not be that they're evil or that they're good, but that the players can talk with them and work with them and help them come into being or potentially kill them if that's what they want.
Yeah, maybe it does actually want to freeze and then die, or at least be frozen for a while, you know?
Yes, I personally, and we've been watching Rick and Morty over again, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of existentialism in the show, and I like the idea personally of a lot of times when there's something sentient or an AI that it spirals quickly.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily they don't handle it well. Even being a computer that's smart, I like the idea that it, and I say computer, right? Fantasy computer, whatever that means. Magic computer, yeah. Some being that manifests really as a result of magic. It's not an AI. That'll be an interesting thing. We got to see what an AI looks like in a fantasy world. Maybe it's a vague, the factory knows, like, about the Fangorn Forest. I like that slowly throughout the adventure, players begin to get the impression that the factory might be helping them or doing specific things, but never shows itself.
Yeah.
Like sometimes a bad guy just trips because, something malfunctioned, right? A floor plate came up.
Oh.
But really it's the factory trying to help them.
That'd be interesting. I like that.
Stuff like that, where I now imagine that the factory incorporates far more. We haven't talked about what's in there and what it looks like, but now we're getting a better idea of what it's going to look like. Because you suddenly have somebody watching and guiding potentially.
Well, talking about guiding,
Yeah.
I wondered if our umbrella person actually picked up on the distress from the factory. Like, some water still has to go back down the river, obviously
There's a reason they are there. And I agree.
And they're like, I felt something's, maybe that person got the distress from the factory, but they don't really like to intrude on human stuff, or on regular stuff. So
like they're not trying to get involved. Yeah.
So they find the party in the area and kind of nudge them in that direction.
Well, maybe, and I do like that.
It's still really cool to find them below the ice, I think. That's much
true.
cooler.
But more importantly, I think, because that was my first instinct, but more importantly, I like the idea that they're involved, but I don't like the idea that particular person, I want them to have some other aim, and for the players to have to make a hard decision as to whether or not they help them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, because think Miyazaki, right? Think, what is the creature called? No Face.
Oh, yeah.
I want this to be a No Face, not a Billy Bob Thornton's character from Mononoke. I don't remember their names as well. But you know what I mean? I want it to be like, oh my gosh, this guy's here, like this person's here. The Sentient Factory seems like it'd make an interesting set of interactions. Swaying it to your side or not, if you didn't need past patrolling cameras, absolutely Hellmage. Pigpug says, if the factory is an AI, when you flood it, you can freeze it and stop it, or electrify the water and destroy it. I like those, having choices. I like the idea of really leaning on Fallout, especially New Vegas. They had multiple factions and a lot of different decisions you can make that kind of culminate. That's not hard to plan because you kind of have decision points. Do you do this or do you do that? That matters. We just write it down,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Barger said a lot of Fern Gully vibes. Do you want it to keep going that route, or do you want it an adventure to make a statement like that, like a environmental thing or not?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We'll get to that but I like, because he also later says no, somebody else said that. But that is less important to me, right?
Okay.
That is not a constraint. If it has those vibes, that's not bad, but my goal, I did not set out to do that,
Got it.
It just, we ended up focusing on the environmental aspect a lot more of it, and the water, as I, because I brought it up.
And probably because, that's stuff that I've been reading, so that's at the forefront of my mind.
Exactly, yeah. The context is very much so. It was less about that and more about industrialization and potentially exploitation was more what I was going. Less ecological and more
so those
cultural.
are the themes that we're
more the
tackling,
themes we're
maybe.
yeah. But again, cartoon. You know what I mean? Like I almost even hate saying that out loud because I'm not trying to go that way. If I were, I'd have them as harder lenses. But those are more some of the themes.
Got it.
But Barker says. Oh, Josh, now she's hiding behind me and shy. Well, we're very far behind on that because we finally got to the chat. But Lizzie, if you're still watching, don't hide. It's okay.
Yeah.
Barker says the factory takes over corporation because factory sentient, because water sentient, because chemical sentient, because corporation bad. I feel like you really wrote to the word limit there. The character limit there. I do keep forgetting the tech level because I jumped in at talking Twinkie desserts. That's what's interesting is it's very much a mix, sort of like Flintstones, where they have things that we consider technologically advanced, but the way they achieve them is potentially weird, heavy-handed, or
Yeah.
not that technologically
So,
advanced.
like, they had a
Brontosaurus shower.
or they had a garbage disposal. It was like a pig under the sink, but
Oh,
they had garbage
yes.
disposal.
Where it's like, you assume they have everything, and you find a way within the tech level to make it work, even if you have to suspend your disbelief to get
See you,
there.
Matt. See you, Hellmage.
Oh, see Hellmage? Yeah, we're taking forever. Oh, all right. Oh, he just said that.
Oh,
Good news.
boy.
They just said that. Yes. See you later. No, that's good. That's a good one to address quickly. Oh yeah, talking Twinkie desserts. That's where we were. But Josh says, what if the factory is just happy it's being used and doesn't care why? So what's
Also
interesting is
that.
we have to decide what thing, what part of it, what is the sentience? Where did it come from?
Right.
I was imagining it came instead from, I'm thinking more Jarvis, where it's like there was something they had, some entity that was helping them keep track of it all,
Okay.
and then that entity gained sentience. And we say gained sentience, but really what is they
allowed for it, right? They enabled that transition to sentience.
they eventually the
Not sure.
entity itself
Okay.
eventually considered why it existed.
Okay. Yeah.
And that caused problems. I like actually how broad that is. Chemicals are tricky buggers already. Don't tell me they're sentient now, says Hellmage. And then, yes, Barker said a lot of Fern Gully vibes. I mixed up some of what he was saying. That's why I pointed it. He says, Jarvis, yes. Take it from a chemist in training. Electrons aren't real. Copper is a conspiracy. He's being
Oh my
sarcastic,
God.
but it's true. What if a river comes from the glacier, which is like an ice elemental or something, and the factory is melting it down too quickly for it to regenerate? It feeds the people, the land, the talking food and gardens, but the factory is hurting it unintentionally and sucking magic out of the land as it consumes the river water. I love that too.
That's
because
a cool one.
we never talked about the villain, remember? Somebody owns this or something, and I imagine it would be some big chairman or boss, but we're now discussing a lot more that it's like, no, this part of the ecosystem, sentient factory,
Yeah.
is interacting with this other part of it, which is this potentially sentient, glacier that is trying to feed the land,
And
It's so much more fantasy.
so the factory at one point made giant hair dryers, basically, and they just hold it up. That's how they melt the ice from the glacier. They have giant hair dryers.
Stuff like that. And Barker said something that's interesting we can touch on. Cartoon is a difficult pillar too because Flintstones is not Mononoke, is not heavy metal.
Correct.
That's where cartoon, and we didn't necessarily say this explicitly, but cartoon is where I like to start explaining it. But as the distinctions, it's more like a way to get you a little further than being able to, like, describing in what situations gore is crazy and what situations it's not. It's easier to point to something that exists for you to go, oh, people never get dismembered in that show, so they would never get dismembered in this, right? So I agree that cartoon is not the pillar.
It needs, if we're going to use that term, we need like a clear set of definitions to say what is tune for this world and what isn't.
And
How
that's
far can
where
we subject?
I have given exact specific examples,
Okay.
and I think in general,
I'm getting
enough people don't have enough of the context.
yeah, but we're getting closer.
No, absolutely. I just want to point out that that's what's really important is it's not really that I agree that it's not really the pillar because saying that means so many things to so many people that it makes for a very bad pillar. It's more that I'm picking specific things out of specific cartoons, we've touched on. So the other thing is we've talked cartoons, but we've also brought up Miyazaki for other tone contexts, and that could be getting lumped into, but that mattered less that they were cartoons, I guess.
Because Miyazaki, for me, actually is a more creative influence than, say, Looney Tunes. Because, I mean, when I picture the umbrella, I'm thinking of Spirited Away, where the main character, whose name I'm forgetting, of course, is, like, going to visit the Good Witch, and there's that little scarecrow that's hopping around. He has an umbrella hanging on a little arm, and, like, that's the influence for that.
Exactly, because I'm realizing
that.
what probably the best way to put it would be that it's drawn, not simulated or created. Because Miyazaki works partly because it's drawn.
The style.
You can't get that same style, or they haven't tried, I suppose, maybe it's possible, right? With like 3D or a practical, like a real movie, realistic with practical effects. It evokes a different feeling.
They actually tried to do, I think this is just from the same studio, not Miyazaki himself, but he did like Earwig and the Witch as a recent 3D kind of Studio Ghibli film, and it's like, just doesn't look the same, man.
And that's what's so important is
Doesn't feel the same.
Exactly. So in that specific case, Miyazaki was not for the cartoon lens as much as it was for that specific person because I wanted you to so quickly get that it was so fantastical. Right?
Yeah.
But that's what's hard is part of this stream has been figuring out how to explain that, because it's showing me that saying cartoon is not the way to explain it.
Yeah.
It's really because there's so many different things, like you said. Flintstones is not Mononoke, is not heavy metal. Like I said, I'm definitely cherry picking. But that is what I feel like it takes, is to just keep talking about it until somebody's like, oh, okay, I see what things may be and what things aren't.
And then it's up to the players, of course, as to how far you want to take it. Like, James's world of this cartoon is going to be a little bit different from mine. So hopefully if we're getting together to play this game, we're on rough agreement, I suppose?
Yes, and because I suppose that's another very important thing to bring up. Barker says, consider doing another episode of this, but with a dock open, creating pillars. I did want to type stuff. I did want to. The big thing is we don't have a great solution for typing while the mic is on the table. So I agree that it'd be much better.
And thank you, Turd Rocket. Chihiro, that's her name. It's perfect. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the major thing is the plan was not to focus on that as much as the world building, and then we've gotten onto that. And I don't think that's a bad thing as much. But the major part of it is that I do have a very specific idea of what I think it should be, and getting that across to people is not as simple. But I think having, writing down those examples, because I gave a lot of examples. But like I said, I gave extremely specific examples that if you missed a few of them, you wouldn't know. So like I said, that's less important, but we are leaning hard into the fantasy descriptions of things that exist in the world of Uncoin.
Sorry, the mic machine gun noise? Did I...
Yeah, yes.
Okay?
When you type, if you type, the machine gun noise comes through. That's why I don't type, and that's why we try to avoid typing. I didn't know if yours did it as well, but
I was worried that the mic was messing up or something.
No. I think it's just, that's why I said it's hard to have the dock. I need to, I don't know, put it on a riser, or there's like other solutions.
We'll figure it
today I was like, crap, I can't type, and this would be so good if people could refer to something, because I know that
I should just take notes next time.
I figured it's easy if everybody can see it. That is the other important thing.
It's
Cole
okay,
Sparks.
Cole. Thanks
Thanks.
for joining us now.
I step away from email for a few hours and I miss all the excitement. That's Sunday night. It's nothing's happening, but something is happening and you're missing it. But it just feels like nothing's happening.
It's already evening. Spring forward.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, exactly. 6:15. But so
bananas.
Somebody mentioned we were going through chat. And then,
we were.
And here we go.
Slapstick Magic, create a step on me rake.
Oh, but Pig Pug specifically. So that's what's important. Is the other thing about cartoons is often. And again, this is any media, really. But there are a lot of cartoons, because they're 22 minutes, a lot of the time, they ship so quickly, where sometimes it's like this really serious thing is happening, and then this not so serious thing is happening. So I think that there's a world where you can have a rake that you step on it and it smacks you in the face, in the same world where there are also these sort of socio-political issues, that are causing... you can have both.
That's just like here, because people do silly things on TikTok all the time, like stepping on things and getting hurt.
Exactly. But I would want there to be an extreme sort of dichotomy between not so much slapstick, but more like things that can be funny, and then things that can be serious as well.
Yeah.
Cool. But so Pigpug said, did Umbrella Man create the AI, or did the AI create Umbrella Man? I like to think that they are completely disparate parts of the world, but they do have great interaction.
Yeah.
That a being like, as timeless as this singular spirit we are imagining, would probably go and talk to this person. They would go and this thing, this now sentient, I guess, factory. Like I said, I imagine more an entity that embodies the building that controls it or something.
Got it. I almost wondered if Umbrella Man was like, I just wandered over here because things seemed a little interesting,
Exactly. That's the sort of vibe where it's like, no, I got a feeling about this place. The other thing I want to say, we keep calling it this person Umbrella Man, right? I have actually not specified a gender. I think if I did, I didn't mean to. The important thing is it would probably be a very androgynous-looking person. I'm imagining, like,
certainly
David Bowie.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking David Bowie, a little bit of the flair that they have, because those are the things from the cultures around it that it likes.
Exactly. And so more importantly, this thing is a spirit, right? So we're simply trying not to apply our things, in this case, Umbrella Man, right?
Yeah.
The reason I say that especially, though, is because the umbrella, in my opinion, is just one of the artifacts they have. If they're trying to get through somewhere, they have that, but they also can, I don't know, do magic and probably talk to people. Like, they are a magical being, and it shouldn't surprise you that they can do anything.
Yeah.
But how they do it is very much like, no, I wandered to this part of this world because something was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like, very fantastic.
Like Domino, remember? From Deadpool 2. They're like, why are you here? It's like, I don't know yet.
Exactly.
But I'm
very
here.
much like that, where I love that feeling of...
Serendipity?
Yeah, of the
Coincidence?
person leaning into this singular spirit going, no, I figured I needed to be here. It
Yeah.
seemed like I needed to be here, you know.
I like that.
Exactly. So I don't think that they're necessarily created it, but I do want them involved in the story.
Okay.
Pigbuck says, Magic Missile, Wile E. Coyote, Red Rockets.
Yeah, that would absolutely be a thing I'd want to see.
And that, yeah. I like the idea. Okay, so when I hear that, what I imagine, here's how I'm putting that in the world, right?
Okay.
Remember, we're going to the different rooms and seeing the different things they're creating. So one of the things that they're working on here is a device that you can use, maybe a spell focus if we're playing D&D,
Okay.
that you can use that allows you to change how your spells manifest, or specifically makes them in a very specific way, right? So now you use that, and you have a person in your party gets this item,
Yeah.
and you set up them to test it out. And they shoot, instead of their normal magic missiles of purples and greens, or however they've described it in the past, they're little rockets. Because the device was specifically made to make it look different, and there's no reason that couldn't happen in this world. They didn't make it look like rockets because of Wile E. Coyote. That's for the viewer, right?
Yes.
But we describe them as though they're little rockets with fuses potentially flying through the air, leaving smoke trails. Because that's fun for all of us, and it doesn't hurt the game at all.
And imagine, because it's fun, right? Doesn't hurt the game. So you're casting magic missile. It comes out. Maybe the tip of your wand opens up, and a little rocket pokes out. But then once it shoots off, it becomes big, kind of gears up, and then
Like some of the bullets in Mario sometimes.
Yeah.
When they're big, and I think yeah.
start small and.
But exactly, and that's where I think that you can really walk a line between what is like cartoonish and Wile E. Coyote, and what is cartoonish and Rick and Morty, because again, like I said, more the cartoon is about. But okay, here. Too bad you don't have a coworker who could take minutes. Josh said, "Are they spells and are they a bit goofy too?"
They could be.
Yeah, Umbrella Man reminds me of Cigarette Smoking Man from X-Files. So,
I don't know that one.
and that's okay. They're more like an ominous figure in the background to me, right?
Oh,
They're
okay.
Whereas this is more like a Man in Black style. Like when they wander to town, you know something's up, but you don't know what it is, and you'll never get an answer from
They're
it.
like, so they're sometimes seen as a bad omen. Some of them.
Yeah, like exactly. Like you kind of there's nothing you can do with a singular spirit coming into town, but
Oh my God!
but
Portable.
you are
holes.
worried about it.
Portable.
So that is a
holes.
thing in D&D. So yeah.
Sorry.
The
that's
rockets
a
say
good idea.
Acme on the side, Cole Sparks said. And Barker says, don't listen to this. They're gauntlets that allow you to change your spells. Next room is a helmet that allows you to see through walls. Last room is armor, plate, and legs. All together is a scuba suit. I really like that idea. I love that a lot.
Don't
because,
listen to this.
yeah, don't listen to this, right? But no, I'm not listening. Also the party should be able to use portable holes. You know the type of mean. Absolutely. Yeah, Barker says, Cole, guaranteed. That's the other thing. Like I said earlier, with things like that, I could say that they looked like rockets. But what I've done, and what I probably would do in the game, is I would ask the player what it makes it look like. And because of the rest of the context we have of the cartoons, you know, of me both explaining it better, you know, having those tones very clearly laid out, I didn't listen, I promise. I didn't listen to a word of it. That allows us to then, when I say, okay, it changes your magic missile into something, you know, more... I'll just say different. It changes your magic missile into something different. Describe how it looks, you know, and then they get to. They're going to say it looks like rockets, just like somebody else did in this tree, you know.
I like that.
Yeah, but portable holes are just basically like a bag of holding. They just create an interdimensional space. That's the main thing. There's a lot of little things like that.
What would happen if
Yeah.
you put down a hole and then somebody picked it up and you're just stuck in it? Are you in jail?
Well, and that's it. That's the main thing where what Pigpug is saying is it is like a hole where when you open it, it's just a portal to another dimension, basically. It's more like the suitcase from the J.K. Rowling movie that is not Harry Potter.
Okay,
Beasts
the
and Where to Find Them.
fantastical beasts and where to find them. That was it.
I feel like there's one more word before that, but I think you're right. Fantastical beasts and where to find them. It's like
Or fantastic. I might have
no, I think
added that.
whatever, not important,
We
but
get
more
it.
like that where it's like I think it's like you go through and it's I don't know. I imagine there being a little apartment in there. Yeah. Are you in jail? I'm dying. You, I guess, are basically in jail. Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like that's what it'd be. You'd just be stuck there until somebody hopefully puts it back down.
Yeah. So
What if you're a spirit that got stuck in there? Oh gosh, and you've been released finally.
You know what you just described?
What?
Genie in a bottle.
Oh my god.
I'm not saying that's
That
not a
makes
bad
sense.
thing, but what that allows you to do, it's not a genie and it's not a bottle, right?
Right.
But you know the perspective of someone trapped in something for a long time already from very many other things. So I only point that out not to say, hey, it's just like that, but instead to say, don't forget it's so much like that you can write that better than you realize. To everybody, not just
Yes.
you, obviously. Yeah, they're just basically, creates an interdimensional space. Yeah, Josh, I like more portal gun because that creates less... everybody that gets a portable hole or a bag of holding or something is always trying to turn it inside out and like destroy the universe and stuff. I just don't think that kind of thing should be possible unless that's what your game is about. Barker says, I love that it's actually an interdimensional jail.
It could be.
It
What if
absolutely could
maybe the umbrella person has what's their yin to their yang or whatever. Maybe there's a
like
bag.
who else? Yeah, maybe.
Another
absolutely.
spirit. But
Well,
anyways,
okay.
that's a lot of fun. That's
And
for
that's
another
the thing.
time. maybe.
Yeah, because I was going to say, that's where I would also draw from Miyazaki, where, maybe it would be more of an ecological theme.
Okay.
But,
Cool.
yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I think we're going to start wrapping this up soon, if that sounds good to you. This was a lot of fun. As Barker pointed out, I think, and not to harp on this, right, but I do agree that in the future, I'd like to find a way to write a lot of the stuff down, which would not only allow people that join later to get more context more quickly, which would be a cool thing. We will also have it afterward with a lot more ideas and a lot of things. We'll address some of the last stuff here. Yeah, go ahead.
Nope. I'm good.
Oh, sorry,
I was
I thought you were
reading.
gonna say something.
I was reading you guys.
Their yang is the warden spirit. Oh, because the holes are the jails. I see. Yeah. I was forgetting what we were talking about. Pigpug says, yes, the interdimensional jail is also filled with random adventurers items. They do absolutely no good unless you get out. Yeah,
I like
right. You have
that.
all the treasure. That is also
like
very
that.
much
Genie.
Aladdin.
Yeah.
Well, because that's
yes.
the thing that opens where the bottle is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, the important thing is I love pointing out where things come from and what things are like, because if I'm writing that scene, I can now take cues from all the things I know, and that is exactly that.
Right, you're putting in your graph basically where you're getting stuff. Aladdin, we got Mary Poppins, we got, oh my gosh.
Goblins, we got, I don't know, Kurt Vonnegut.
Miyazaki. Movies. I want to say, what is it? Jessica Rabbit. What's that one?
Oh, Roger Rabbit. Yeah.
Roger Rabbit.
Which is really
Somebody
funny that you
mentioned
said
that earlier.
Jessica Rabbit.
I know.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit is the name of the
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Somebody else mentioned that way earlier. Like, that's a good one, too.
Yeah. Cole says, it'd be cool to have less powerful portable hole that just makes a hole in whatever you put it on. That is more like cartoons. I like that, where it's like, no. It creates a path through it, more like a portal gun that you don't have to be able to see to make it work.
Most portals are like that, but every once in a while you get one that goes to a different dimension.
Oh, see, and I do like that, where it's like some are different, is far more fun.
But they look exactly the same.
Yes, because it's funny, in D&D, we don't have many of those concepts, as far as our dog, buddy. Get out of here. Now it's not a good time.
John Doe, portable hole, but when you throw it down, it's really the shadow of a grand piano falling from the sky.
Oh,
That's
my
great.
gosh. That, and we've leaned really hard into Acme here, but I all of these are such amazing ideas, yeah.
This is just a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
bug, and Third Rocket, thanks for hanging out too. I'm so glad.
Oh,
to
yes, thank you
geek
everybody
out
for hanging
with
out.
you guys.
We learned, Cassie and I like streaming and talking about stuff, but we learned that sometimes we aren't sure what to talk about, and so everybody was extremely helpful with their suggestions and jumping in and brainstorming. Some people in the past have mentioned that they like world building and brainstorming. I think we could have done that a little more, but
Still,
as far as what
very interesting discussion.
as far as what I wanted you to get from this, yeah, like not as a necessarily even a judgment of the things we talked about, but I feel like I got off topic sometimes is really a better way to put that. But it was a lot of fun. And Barker says this phase is so important though, just to brainstorm. If you're writing, you'll write everything down, and not everything deserves it. Exactly. I didn't know that as fully going in, but Cassie and I sometimes struggle with exactly what we want to stream about, and this was a little bit of an experiment and trying to lean into that and going, we'll find something because I have one little idea of the river, and we just built on it, and then people jumped in, and we got to brainstorm, and And honestly,
I suppose we did super get off track.
no, but that's okay. That was sort of the goal, because what I wanted was to walk away with a bunch of distinctions in my head about what's in the world.
Yeah.
And even people saying, what about this? And me saying, well, I don't see that being as much. It was still very good ideas, cool brainstorming, and it gave me a clear idea of what things I want to write down.
Right.
So Barker, totally on point there. Sometimes you don't want to write everything down, and this gives me some stuff to sit on and mull over.
Yeah, thank you,
And-
too.
yeah.
Just for hanging out. It's been really fun. I enjoy getting a brainstorm. But usually it is just me and James, at least on some topics.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it is really cool.
It is
I like
cool
it.
when people can jump in and get involved, because we're just brainstorming. Everybody can get ideas out of it, and there are very few constraints on what can and can't be. So it's fun to lean into things like the umbrella idea, even though it wasn't exactly what we were doing totally.
But now we have another scene. At one point, you're going to have people under ice running into this being, and that's going to be so cool.
And that is one of the things that I really wanted.
Yeah.
So Michael says that would totally make the factory locations randomly generated. When you put the portable hole on a wall, you don't know exactly where it would lead. Maybe that's what at some point that's one of the ways they have to get through is you're not choosing where you're going. It's this door or that door, like this wall, that wall kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. Pigpug says, no, this was great. Get ideas, then work on mechanics. Yes, exactly. I have some ideas of how I want the game I would play this into work, but that matters so little, in my opinion, for these sort of broader strokes about the world. And then Cole, I really wanted to touch on this. Are you ever going back to the pirate idea? I want to know what happens next to these ideas.
Oh.
Here's what's really interesting.
This was your last stream.
Well, one of the last streams I
okay.
did, but the way I work, and I'm sort of discovering this as I put more work into my own things, something I haven't really done because I didn't think about it. I didn't have things to work on before, and now suddenly I do. What I learn is I will do a bunch of stuff. Like, you probably won't hear about this for another month. But next month, I'll be like, guys, I've been thinking about this for a month. Now I'm ready, right? So I have been thinking about Enemies of All Mankind. I did just see something yesterday that was like, oh man, maybe it'll be that. Where I originally wanted it to be a lot more pirate-focused, but I saw something that was like, ooh, I want elements from that. So I was working on incorporating stuff. But that's the major thing is it takes me I have a long sort of come around time on it where I'll do a stream like this, we'll talk about it, and then I'll really sit on it for a while. But then that means when it's time to do it, I'm ready to do it. You know?
It's an odd phrase to say, but I feel like just letting the ideas gestate for a while, especially after this is a pretty long discussion, almost 90 minutes here.
Oh yeah. And this, I've been thinking about these concepts for months, this idea of the factory and the things in it and stuff. And some of this was explaining, but that's what I love is that it was a little bit time to talk about this, but I can treat the ideas so casually because I don't have a deadline. If Enemies of All Mankind had a deadline and I had to do it, I'm confident that we could make a game and we'd work on it, and of course I would enlist the partners that I work with and Cassie, and we'd all make it, and it would be great. But I love having the freedom to go, no, I mean, I'm going to work on it when it's ready. And that's what I get to do. Now, obviously, you don't want to do that too much, and I have a few irons in the fire, so to speak, but I think it's very exciting. And Barker says, I just remember our last rules brainstorm, James, so helpful. I agree, Barker. I also love that very much. Next time, we'll do a more theoretical thing. I'm glad you guys are sharing with this process because I do share a lot of stuff alone, and it helps me, other people face these quandaries. Absolutely, Turd Rocket. That's one of the major things is I like showing the lumps, the warts of some of this creation where I'm like, I have a bad idea, Cassie. Let's make it better.
Yeah.
I like showing that.
And it wasn't a bad idea.
No, exactly. But I'm like, I have an idea that is not ready yet, that I would not pitch to players and put in a game. But I know some of the elements, and having another person there to go, well, do you really need that? Do you really need that? That's so helpful. But you have to have something for somebody else to point those things out.
Yes.
So all right, we're gonna get out of here, but I'll read these last few. Josh says, I've been wanting to make a heavy metal hard rock world like Brutal Legend, but not comedy. I love that idea because by allowing the players to know what the tone is, everybody can help create that, and you can really achieve that. Cole Sparks, it's super interesting to watch the wheels turn. It's usually pretty opaque for us. I'm so glad to hear people say that because I feel like sometimes this could be so boring and ridiculous to kind of go around in circles a little bit and tell people that, like, I don't know, like just sometimes this conversation I could see people looking at it and going, did you really get anywhere? And we really did. So I like the idea that might actually come across. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah, thank
this has been a lot of fun. We'd like to make this an even more common thing, potentially. I love streaming with Cassie and just in general doing more streams where we just talk about stuff because people seem to enjoy it, and I love getting to kind of do this, go back and forth with everybody.
And I'm glad you guys get to see all those gears turning for James.
Yeah. That is a lot of fun. It helps me make the world because somebody goes, it's brainstorming with everybody. You know, I get to draw from everybody, and then it just makes my stuff better and hopefully your stuff better and everything. So.
And collaboration is key. If that's anything that I've learned recently, is having more people is only going to make these ideas even better. So getting to talk with you guys is invaluable. It's great. It's
exactly. It's really cool.
And
so thank you. Yeah.
James talks to me, but it's multiplied by you guys. So
exactly, because you and I hang out and talk sometimes. But also, I don't know if Amanda's still here, but we did end up reversing one of them. Thank you for that tip. Now, when I look over at Cassie, I actually look at her.
It looks good.
Yeah. Pigpug says, I like the idea of running a campaign AbTab made for everyone and knowing my spark from idea became fleshed out. Absolutely. I love the idea to be able to put some of these ideas out and go, yeah, that was something we talked about in the stream. So that's very exciting. We will do this again. We'll post again in the AbTab group. Get notifications where you get notifications. We'll try to point out to everybody. But otherwise, have a very good Sunday. And catchphrase.
See ya. Catchphrase.